This is the Crossing Bridges podcast, addressing the topics of leadership, criminal justice, and fatherhood. How can we become better leaders? Where are all the daddies? Why is crime at an all-time high? Here is your host, Bayonle Arashi.
Okay, I'm very excited today because this is going to be one of those special episodes of Crossing Bridges podcast. My name is Bayonle Arashi. Today, I have a very, very exciting guest on the show. You know, it's been a while, right? But every time we do have someone on the show, they definitely qualify to discuss the issues that this podcast is established to discuss, to talk about the issue of leadership, talk about the high level of crime that we have in our community, in our society, in our and country at large these days. I mean, every day, mass shooting here and there. When you watch the news, the first 5 minutes, what all you see is crime being committed by teenagers, being committed by young men, and we feel responsible that we have to start talking about it. We can't depend on the government for everything. And also issue of fatherlessness, which I think is actually the foundation of the whole issue that we are looking at today. America is seeking, and some of us that are privileged to come here, some of you know my story, but if you are hearing or watching this podcast for the first time, I'm an immigrant, just like many people that have come to this country in search of a better life, in search of something different, and hoping that United States, being the freest country in the world, being the land of brave, being the land of hope, some of us come here just to make money and take care of our family. But of course, now it is our home. We have to make it better. Having said all that, let me welcome my guest today, who I'm hoping together we can share our experience. And through his experience, through his story, you can learn that wherever you are in life or wherever you are coming from, it is just going to be an excuse that you can change your life. You can take yourself from wherever you are at the moment to whatever you want to be. That is not going to be difficult. It's not. So you're going to hear it all from my guest today. Chris, it's very nice having you on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing excellent, Bayonle. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
I am very, very excited having you on the show as well. And as I've said in my introduction, you and I met not by accident, because I always say that every people you meet in life, they are either going to teach you a lesson or they are going to move your life forward. I don't
I
say
like
it the
that.
general way that people say so, but I think our meeting was divine, was very, very important. Being a man of purpose myself, that I call myself, I'm always searching for fellow warriors, fellow lions, fellow
Mm.
people that are doing what I intend to do and the message I intend to share with the world. So when I encounter your page and I followed up, and you were so gracious enough to allow me to talk to you, and now having you on the podcast. So I didn't take that for granted at all. So thank you for the opportunity. And can we meet you, Chris?
So I first love that you said fellow warriors, right? Because I think it's always about finding your tribe, finding warriors that are like-minded, because that's what it's
Yes.
really about, you know? So I'm grateful and appreciative to be on.
Excellent, excellent, Chris. So, Chris, I want you, in your own words, tell us your story.
Okay.
Where did you grow up? How did you grow up? What
Yeah.
was dad doing? Did you grow up with dad and mom? And how has life been for you so far? I want you to tell us in your own words.
Love it. Okay. I look forward to it. So really, and I don't think my life is crazy unusual to a lot of people, especially in America now. So when I was young, 5, 6 years old, I'm originally from Phoenix, Arizona. I live in Utah now. And so I was molested by a cousin. Not That's probably more unique, but when it happened around 5 or 6 years old, and then at the same time, my parents got divorced. So, my parents were still good parents. They just didn't know how to handle some of the situations, because nobody plans to get married to get divorced. And so with that, there was a lot of just, obviously confrontation from 5 to 6, hearing it in the household. And then they finally got divorced. And really, from the molestation and the divorce, and obviously when you're 5 or 6, you don't know how to process or handle those emotions. And some people, do amazing things with those. I chose to use drugs and alcohol when I got into like middle school, high school. And I really started using a lot in high school and then in my early 20s. And really the trouble that I found was I didn't know how to handle it. I wanted to lash out, and all I really could attach to was anger, right? I had a lot of testosterone as a young man, like most of us do. And anger was the thing that I went to. I didn't know how to communicate my feelings. I didn't know how to handle any of the emotions or things that came up. So then I just lashed out. And that could have gone very badly. Luckily, even though my parents were divorced and my dad, like I would see him every couple weekends. It wasn't like absentee, but also he worked a ton, and just like most men do. And it was just, I spent a lot. I was raised a lot more by my mom and my aunt. My dad was still there, and we are very closely connected now as we got older. Yeah, like he was still there. It was just different because when you don't have somebody in the household, as most of us can relate, it's different being raised by a man and a woman in the household than a woman in the household and a man in a distant, somewhere else in the state, that kind of thing.
Well, this is one of the very interesting things that I think I have had, and it's going to be a follow-up to your question. It has been proven statistically that in the household that is raised by male and female, which means dad and mom, and the one that is raised by just mom, most likely the kid, because it is not correct to say all the male child did not turn out well, but it is most likely that the male child will have a lot of issues in terms of crime going forward. But it has also been said that a child raised by mom and dad, or the one that is raised single-handedly by the dad, more likely have to turn out the same way and be successful. What do you think about this narrative?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, like you said, statistically, we know that's correct. And I think the trouble that I find is that men need to have men helping raise them, because then they can obviously instill in them the male part of the human experience, right? Like I got a lot of great gifts from being raised by a lot of women. I'm very in touch, now after learning how to process my feelings and emotions, I'm much more in touch with those. But without the man leadership and just the male role, it's very difficult to know how to replicate that. Or also, men tend to be a firmer hand in disciplining the children. And I don't mean you don't have to beat your kids, but I do mean that you simply have to have a firmer hand and a firmer way of understanding, like this is how you funnel those feelings and emotions as a man, that a woman can't necessarily interpret because she's a woman. And I don't want to be sexist.
And they are naturally emotionally connected to us. And I'm just going to chip this in real quick, Chris.
Yeah.
When they say beat your child, and I'm sure you know this, one of the things that make me very proud of this country, United States, is the fact that it says in its foundation that in God we trust. So this country believes in God. It was established based on the foundation of God. And if all the word of God that we are using today was gotten from the Bible, the same Bible confirmed that if you beat your child with a rod, he is not going to die. It is written there. So I think it's one of the reasons why we are where we are today in terms of high crime rate. Some of the laws that the government are putting, and I'm going to tell you this statistically also. I read it a few days ago. About 7.2% of the United States today, citizen population today, did not either identify as a male or female. Don't you think this is a major cancer that needed to be battled? Even though I still have a follow-up question to how you are able to transform your life to where you are right now. But what is your opinion about this?
Yeah, so you're saying on the the binary or non-binary. I mean, I think the challenge is, so from my perspective, when I was a kid, part of not having a dad and mom that were connected was there's still this piece that you feel lost about, right? And most teenagers feel like to early 20s feel lost in life. They don't know who to connect to. They don't know who they are. They don't know like what a safe friendship or healthy relationship looks like, right? And so I think the trouble I find when you say it is a cancer, it is another piece that adds to that. And then it adds to this thing of like, I'm still so more confused. Now there's this other thing added in that now I can even be more confused about. And the challenge is, I don't know about you, finally, but like when I was growing up, I wanted to do a lot of stupid stuff when I was a kid and a teenager. I was like, oh, this is gonna be the this. I'm gonna feel this way for the rest of my life, right? And luckily my parents were around enough to go like, no, you're not. You're kind of a little crazy right now. And they helped me see that over time, right? And they told me, no, you're not gonna do that. And that was a benefit to me because I would have done a lot worse things in my life had they not been around. So I think when you bring in like the not relating to a gender, right, for lack of a better way of saying it, there is more disconnect, right? Like, okay, I don't, hey, you're a man, I don't relate to you. Hey, you're a woman, I don't relate to you. So I'm more disconnected from society as a whole. And I think that's the detrimental part, right? Is the lack of connection and the feeling lost even more. And nobody does good things when they feel lack of connection and they feel lost in society.
Wow. Well, I mean, I'm so thankful that you put it in that way, and thank you very much again for all those very filled information with a lot of wisdom. Now, Chris, during your introduction earlier, you mentioned how divorce of your parents kind of lead you to a couple of things that, as you put it, many young men did, drugs, disconnect. How are you able uh, to start healing from that, um, from those issues that, like every other American, you know about me already as a correctional officer working in the criminal justice system, I have found that many young men, unfortunately, that go on that path, not many are able to find themselves back. So that is one of the things I feel makes your own story very unique. So, I want you also have this opportunity that I have having you on the podcast to use it as a form of mentoring moment for anyone
Cool.
out there listening or fortunate enough to be watching, how they can also use the same system or the same process that you use to get to where you are today.
Okay. I love great. First of all, that's a great question. So the physical abuse, the sexual abuse that I had as a kid, and then the divorce led me to the drugs and alcohol. What it put me in my mind was I was a victim. And for me, one of the biggest things, and this I'm gonna be honest, it wasn't like overnight this all changed, but I had to start to accept that I was no longer the victim. These things happened like for me, not to me, right? And because they happened for me, then they were something to learn and grow from. So like this may sound weird, but like the molestation, the physical abuse, I'm grateful for all of it because it made me who I am today. So taking like responsibility, finding something like outside yourself to serve, because for me, and I think most kids, and teenagers, like we're very self-absorbed. So finding something bigger than us to serve, finding connection and community, but really taking personal responsibility is one of the biggest things that we can do. I always wanted to say it was because of my parents, it was because of this person, because of that person, and I know this may sound daunting, and it's so empowering at the same point. If it's all on you, that may sound daunting. If it's all on you, then you're the person that has the ability to control and change yourself. And really, that's the only power I believe you only control and the only power you have in this world. And that's the reason it's so empowering for me. Like if I get in a disagreement with my wife, I can blame it on her. But really, the only person I can change in that disagreement is me. So I'm going to take full responsibility for my part in it, and I'm going to work on me. And there's a superpower and an empowerment when it's only on you and it's your personal responsibility to become your best you. And that was my mindset. That's where it changed, right? Take personal responsibility. Okay, then if I'm personally responsible for me, then I want to become the best person I can become in this world because I want to impact the world in a different way. Because I was surely impacting the world, right? And it was in a negative way. And when I finally felt empowered, it gave me confidence and belief in myself and trust in myself. Then that allowed me to start to empower and go like, I can be a good force in this world too.
Wow, excellent. Just a very excellent answer. And that the summary of it that I could take from that is your perspective changed.
Of
You
course.
started saying things like, look, everything that is wrong is my fault. If anything is bad out there, I am responsible to fix it. But we do hear some of these
Do you mind if I
logical
say one thing to
explanations
that?
sometimes. Yes. Go
So I
ahead.
just want to say this one thing. So everybody knows who Will Smith is, and I think this is so like talking about wisdom. This is so profound. You know, molestation. It maybe wasn't my fault, but it sure as hell is my responsibility what I do with it. My dad and mom like getting in fights or having physical abuse may have not been my fault, but it sure as hell is my responsibility because if not, I have no control over it and I want to be my best me and live my best self. So that perspective change of it's not my fault, but it sure as hell is my responsibility, what I do with it and what I get from it and who I become from it. And those three things are the most important thing you can impact your life with.
Absolutely, absolutely. The door quickly now. What is the one process or one process is actually the right word. What is the one process that you went through or stage that you had to go through for you to have this new perspective? I would love you to share for anyone listening out there before I go to what you do now, because I know what you do now. You are now using all these pain, all these things that could have been excuses that could have make you another data to the criminal justice system or rate of recidivism to as a positive light to the world. I see that, and that's what connected us in the first place. But I want you to share the one thing that you encountered that switched it all over for you.
Man, that is a tough question. Like I so I didn't go to treatment to get sober, and however you find your sobriety or your life that you want doesn't matter. Like just find it, right? Go out,
Yes.
keep searching, searching, searching until you find it. So that's number one. I would say like don't give up. If this one thing didn't work, go do something else. If that one thing doesn't work, go do something else. So I found somebody that helped me with my life, and one thing he really instilled with me is how I speak to myself. So if I was going to give you like one, two things, and then I'm going to give you like a dual answer to it. I think first you have to start to observe your thoughts and your feelings. And most people, what they do is they go like, "Oh man, I should be doing this," or like, "Oh, I feel this way. That's dumb that I feel this way." Like, no, those are real feelings. You have to honor and hear your feelings. You have to know like you can adjust them, but you have to honor and fit and understand your feelings and your thoughts. And then you have to start to work on your self-talk because if you what we speak out into the world, that's how we feel inside, right?
Yes.
And if we said it out loud, that means I said it to myself 10,000 times today before I even said it to you. So I want to make sure I listen and observe my feelings and thoughts, start to honor them and validate them because we all want to be seen, heard, and validated in life, yet we won't see and hear and validate our own feelings. So if we do that, then we can design self-talk where we go like, okay, this is where I'm at. This is where I want to head. And then we can adjust and move. And then when our brain has that self-talk, it gives it a clear, consistent focus. Because obviously at one point I thought like, I'm a drug addict. That's all I could tell you, right? Like I'm a drug addict, alcoholic. I always will be. At one point it was a pride. Like I'll drink you under the table. Like, you want to do some drugs? Let's do it, right? I'm a badass. And eventually that became a bad thing or a negative thing in my life. So once I took that and I could design with self-talk where I wanted to head, it kept my brain and it allowed me to let go of my vision of being a drug addict to being this new person that I wanted to become. And that's the reason it's so important. It's so profound in my growth.
Excellent. I mean, you just put it right there. And what I could summarize with that again is you use the process. One of my mentor that I'm hoping I can meet him. Les Brown said is you change your mindset. You switch your own mindset by starting with self talk. And I know you also mentioned about a mentor that you encountered a mentor. And I'm always a very advocate of this that we are responsible for our thought, we are responsible for our life, and we can always have that opportunity to switch things around. So now let's go to the next one, Chris, because I know we don't have a lot of time, but I want to maximize this opportunity. Now that you were able to transit from an abused child, someone that unfortunately come from a divorced family, and of course you started doing what an average teenagers do. Because the truth of the matter is, a lot of teenagers do a lot of dumb stuff in those teenage years. Now that you are using it for force for good, how did you go about the transition? And now that you are doing it, how have you been able to impact the younger generation? And what do you hope to achieve in the next 5 years with your project?
Okay, I love that's a great question. And first, I want to go Bayonle. Like we are kindred spirits, man. Les Brown, he isn't the man I'm talking about, but he like him, and I haven't met him, but just listening to his audios
Yes.
impacted my life for this greatest good. And if you don't know who Les Brown is, like pause this podcast and go look him up, or at the end of this, look him up,
Please.
because he is absolutely amazing. And I don't
Yes.
know how much longer he'll be on this earth, but God bless him for what he's gone through. Like
Because
I have a shirt that says I'm the
it's in its
one.
70s right now. Yes, you're right
Yeah,
with that word.
he is incredible. So how did I move forward, or how do I help people? And then really, what am I looking to do in the next 5 years? Correct. So, after I got sober and I helped like transform my brain, transform my view of myself, my first thing I want to do is like, man, this is amazing. I know there's a ton of other people suffering out there, so I want to help coach people. So I started going out and connecting with people either through social media, through treatment centers, through just anybody I met in life that wanted about it, like going and speaking at events. And when I was able to do that, there was just a lot of people I connected with. And then I have my own process that I take them through, because like I implement things myself before I ever suggest them to anybody else. So once I implemented things long enough, I started to put a program together that I help people through. And I love impacting, the youth. I love impact because the youth needs a lot of help in my perspective. And then I love impacting anybody that I can get in front of, just even if it's 5 minutes. If I just like Les Brown, right? Hey, a 5-minute YouTube video could change your life forever. So if I have 5 minutes, I'm going to give you my best. What I have planned, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead with the next.
So what I have planned for the next 5 years is, let's see, January 2022, January 9th, 2022. After, all going through all these hards, like I ran a marathon with no training in 2019. Then I ran a 50 miler. And then I was like, man, I hate running. So choose your hard. So that I got to think of like, what do I really dislike the most? Running. Running's pretty close up there. So I decided I will run, and I've never, before January of 2022, I'd never run more than 4 days straight. But I was like, you know what? I got this thing. I want to impact the world bigger. I want to make a bigger splash in this world. So I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start to run. And I started running 1 mile a day for 90 days, 2 mile a day for 90 days. And so right now I'm at 6 miles for 90 days somewhere here. I'll be at 90 days. I've ran 77 days straight. And my whole plan is to do that for a little short of 2,000 days. And then as soon as those days hit, I'm going to go across America. So I'm going to run 6,600 miles because 3,300 is about like across, but I want to be able to tell people I did like across and back. So we'll do 220 days at 30 miles a day. And I want to raise awareness around mental and behavioral health and veterans, and just help people see a different view of themselves, right? Really what I want to do is I want people to understand when they look at me, like I'm an average person. I'm no different than anybody else. So if I can go run that, or if I can do something hard, maybe it's whatever your heart is, whatever you're facing, you can do it. And there's so much more inside you than you give yourself credit for. Like you can truly unleash a superpower inside you if you believe enough. And it doesn't matter who tells you yes or who tells you no. There's only one person that truly matters when you want to achieve something hard, and that's you. And I want it to, like, the running is a reflection of me to go like, see, you are better. You are better than you think you are. You are greater than you are. You are greater than you were yesterday. And that's what it's about, is going to bed better tonight than when I woke up this morning.
Well, I wish you have an idea how much goosebumps is coming out of my body hearing all of that. And I am so excited for this episode of the show, because I know this is most likely going to go viral. I hope it does, because when you mentioned running, I was actually looking for a way where we're going to connect that dot, and it was, you just did it yourself. And I'm very, very excited for you. So, but just to have a clarity, because I know you're probably one of the crazy ones, I hope you allow me to call you that. So are you
I
saying you
love it.
run 6 miles every day right now? Just to
Yeah,
be
6
clear.
miles every day, then 7, right? So not for 90 days straight, I'll run 6 miles. Then the next thing is 7 miles. And my whole goal is to get up to about somewhere between 22 to 26 miles for, 90 days. And then I'll go do 30 miles a day for 220 days.
Well, you can hear that, right? This man started from 1 mile a day for 90 days, and now he does 6 miles per day. Yours truly can only do 5 miles twice a week. And I think to an extent, I give myself a pat on the back for that, but I don't think I'm doing enough. And you just challenge me again now. So we might need to find a way to connect you and the great David Goggins and see what's going to happen from there on. But thank you very much for sharing that. And that's a lot of quality, a lot of things you are adding when it comes to mental health, when it comes to how to give yourself a distraction from something that can literally take you down the pit, for something that can take you to the next level of your life. It's just a shift in mindset rather than going through this route. And let me just go through this right route. So thank you very much for sharing all of that, Chris. Before our time goes by, before the end of the podcast, I always have these 4 questions that I ask my guests on the show, which is one of the things that summarizes what the podcast is all about. My first question is about leadership. Do you think leaders are born or they are made?
Absolutely made. Like there is nobody's born with an S on their chest for, self-employed. Nobody's born with anything besides, obviously a brain and skin and all that good stuff. We are definitely shaped by our experiences and the stories we tell ourselves about those experiences. So leaders are definitely not born. They are 100% made.
Fantastic, fantastic response. The second question is about what we have discussed from the beginning of this show. Again, which summarizes your own life. You have the option of sticking to the excuse of, oh, my family were divorced, so that's why my life is so messed up. Or, oh, I'm doing drugs and I'm going to go down the hill from here. I've had, and I've seen people that continuously go back to drugs and they keep going in front of a judge, and the judge gave them a chance first and second and the third time, and the fourth time the judge sentenced them to 35 years and more. So you changing your perspective and changing your life about that will make this question the perfect one for you. What do you think makes a good man, Chris?
I mean, that's such a complex question. I think it is somebody that you can trust, that shows you good character, and somebody that can admit when they make mistakes. Like, I don't think you have to be right all the time. That's not the goal. The goal is to be character, trust, and humble enough to be able to go like, man, I'm going to go, right? There's a forest out there. I don't know how to get through this forest, but I'm going to start chopping. And you know what? I'm going to be the leader of the family, of the people behind me. And I'm going to make some mistakes, but I'm going to turn back and go like, hey, I made some mistakes. I went the wrong way. We got to go this way. So I think, trust, character, and being able to be humble enough to admit when we're wrong are huge things as being a man in today's world.
Absolutely. Fantastic response there, my friend. Thank you so much for sharing that. And since you are a student of Les Brown, obviously, and a student of other leaders that have used their own time, that they have used their own free will to provide some of us that are coming behind them the opportunity to learn from their work, to learn from their mistakes, so we don't have to repeat the same mistakes. This next question will be very interesting as well. And again, for that last question I ask you, I have had different perspective, and I know the question can be very, very critical or complex, as you put it earlier, but it is intentional so that we know what each of us stands for. Every man has his own strength, has his own definition of what a man is. So, but I appreciate you for your own response. The third question will be: there is always a favorite quote everyone live by. What is your own favorite quote that you live by?
Yeah. So first, my wife, so I have like 1,000 favorite quotes. My wife's, and I say to my wife, I'm like, this is my favorite quote. She's like, you have like 1,000 favorite quotes. So I'm gonna tell you this one because I think it's so profound and important. And it is this: my tailor is the most honest man I know. Every time he sees me, he takes a new measurement. And the reason this is so profound to me is because we look at our family members, we look at friends, we look at ourselves, and we don't take a new measurement. And if we want to give ourselves credit and ability to like transform our life, we have to start to look in the mirror and see a new measurement of ourselves. And I think it's so profound and so important for us to all do together.
Wow, I have never had that before. I haven't had that before, and that is such a powerful one. And I would need to write that down somewhere and just make sure I read every day. Around me, you will see a lot of quote, but then thank you for sharing your own with us, and that's very original, I must say. Finally, on the fourth question, which is also the one I think you are perfectly fit to answer, because now you are a leader in your own right. I mean, you challenging your body, and you look at it, you look like it. You're not just talking about it, running from 1 mile a day for 90 days, and now you are at 6. I'm sure maybe the next time I'm going to have you on the podcast, maybe you must have hit your 26 miles a day, which I think is, I don't want to say unrealistic, because I know I have learned over the years that our body will always adjust to whatever we tell it.
For
We
sure.
are the owner of them, of our mind. So whatever we ask it to do, it will adjust. Like David Goggins said, if you don't quit, if you don't stop, your mind is going to tell you he's not going to quit. So we have to expand, like he always put it. So the last one is, what is your own biggest leadership lesson that you've learned in life? What's your biggest leadership lesson?
I think my biggest leadership lesson is, I call it PEP, process, execution, patience. So most of us want something really quickly, and most of us don't have a process around something. But the reason I started it as a mile, because I needed to start to build this small belief, and I knew if I got outside the door, I could walk a mile, or I could run a mile, right? So I could get a mile done. And then once I did that, I could believe in myself. Like, okay, cool, you're doing what you say you're going to do, right? You're building trust with yourself. So if you have a process around anything that you do, if you can execute on that and you can have patience, you will get the result you're looking for. And that is a huge thing to give to yourself and to give to others.
Excellent, man. Excellent. I'm so thankful for having you on the podcast. Well, I can't say anything like what more can I add than just to say thank you very much for sharing from your wealth of wisdom, from your story. And I really, really hope a lot of success for you in your leadership role, in your coaching business. And for anyone that would like to reach you out there for either coaching opportunity or mentorship opportunity, how can they find you? What are your platforms that you're available on? Please go ahead and share.
Yeah, so I think the best place to find me is Instagram. That's where I post the most. And it's at Chris Avery Coaching. So at Chris Avery Coaching on Instagram.
Okay, so please follow at Chris Avery Coaching, one word, on Instagram. I bet you, I can vouch that is someone that you need to follow. This is how we can start making that change. I was concerned. I was very worried about the lack of fatherlessness in America. I was worried that many leaders that we have today will see color red, and they will easily say that's black. I mean, I could not believe what my eyes were seeing. And I also feel we need fathers. If you are a father out there, please watch this, share with your sons, share with your daughters, spread the message, and just be a force for good for our life, for our community, and for our country at large. I want to say thank you very much, Chris, for coming again, and I hope to have you again on the show. Till I see you guys again next time, God willing. My name is Bayonle Arashi. Thank you for listening and watching our Crossing Bridges podcast. Bye bye now.
Thank you for listening to the Crossing Bridges podcast with Bayonle Arashi. Your comments, suggestions, and ideas are welcomed. Follow Bayonle on all social media platforms at Bayonle Arashi, or visit www.bayonlearashi.com for coaching and speaking engagements. See you next time.